Hi everyone, welcome. I'm preparing to check in on these 2 bins of European nightcrawler worms to give them a feeding. It's been 2 weeks since we checked in on them. Well, I've got some other info about them that I can share with you, and I think the most vital thing is their age. 200 days in service now. Yay! I mean, I would have normally, following my typical feeding schedule, I would have been in here to feed these guys a couple days ago already, but I figured, hey, if we were to wait just a couple more days, we can actually visit in on them on their 18th feeding, which coincides with day 200. And 2 weeks since we last checked in, as I mentioned a moment ago. So let's see how they're coming along. Alright. I can see that we've still got some feeding zone indicators holding out pretty good over here in the form of these coffee filters, which is good because I didn't come down here prepared with replacement coffee filters. For that matter, I don't even have coffee for them today. I've got a pretty good assortment of different kitchen scraps here, though. Quite a heavy bundle. And besides these paper towels here that I was going to use as bedding, I've got my prepared bedding, I've got my leaves. Leaves is what we treated the surface with out here, as you could see when we left last time. And it always seems to me like that stuff right there is probably the type of bedding that the worms favor the best. Stuff that's already had a chance to sort of get started into the breakdown process and become really homey stuff that the worms probably enjoy being in. Is that a coffee filter? Well, it seems like our feeding zone indicator here in bin number 2 has seen better days, but like I said, I don't have a replacement, so we'll take these 3 scraps that we encountered and somehow make one more use out of them. Let's get this one out of the way too so we can jump right in and see how things are coming along. I could see a good bit of moisture just from the appearance of things with the dark material, springtails right beneath the surface. Little white insects that you could see all over the place are also a sign that moisture's in pretty good shape here. I mean, I wouldn't want to go so far as to say that it's too much, because worm bins definitely need moisture. Without moisture, the worms are just gonna, be useless from the point of view of breaking stuff down. They need a good bit of moisture to remain healthy and active and to be able to do what they do for us here. Not to mention just the very breathing is not possible unless they've got access to moisture, because they don't breathe in and out through lungs or through a mouth the way we do. They need to be in contact with moisture at all times because they absorb oxygen out of the moisture that they're in contact with. And that's the reason a nice damp bin is the type of place where the worms are usually the most energetic and lively, because they've got plenty of oxygen to do what they like to do, which is cruise around and help break down our kitchen scraps. Everything feels really nice in terms of nothing's clumping together too much. Everything seems to break away neatly and crumble no matter where I go. And I guess we're probably in the section of the bin that's the most damp, since that's where we've been feeding, but I could be wrong. So I mean, here, I don't know why. I usually just exclude little sticks like this that come in with my leafy bedding, because sticks would probably not look much different from this when it came time to harvest these castings. I think little sticks are just the sort of thing that need way, way more time than the lifespan of any of my typical bins would be able to accomplish. So I guess if we're looking for leftovers, maybe we see a little scrap of this and that here and there, who knows, but the most obvious thing was the cob, the remaining cob from the corn on the cob that got placed in here a few feedings ago. 2 feedings to be exact, because when we came in here last time, we were actually walking in on them for the first time to see how they enjoyed the corn, and they had nibbled off almost all the kernels off the corn. I would say each corn cob probably still had some, I don't know, maybe less than half of the kernels remaining on it still last time, 14 days ago, but that's a thing of the past for sure. Clearly they've gone for what they like the best, and done away with it, but they'll keep working that corn cob. That's just tougher, much more fibrous, tough stuff that takes them much longer to break down. And its weight, it's so light too, you know. Those corn cobs used to be a lot heavier, but now they're just becoming very lightweight. I wouldn't even be surprised if the inside of that thing was becoming hollow. So now that I found half of a mango seed husk over in bin number 2, it kind of makes me wonder, hey, how come I didn't find one in bin number 1? But I mean, what I just did there, a quick probe on either side of the feeding zone, is about the extent of the search. I'm not going to go on a wild goose chase trying to track it down. I just figured maybe it was just somewhere within easy reach and we can incorporate it into our collection of stuff. Here's another thing which I normally exclude, which is the pit from a peach. I do believe I remember myself pulling a peach pit out not too long ago from a system and making me wonder, hey, I usually feed things in pairs, so there's got to be another one of those floating around somewhere. So in the back of my mind, I guess I was still curious as to whatever became of the missing peach pit, and I think we just answered the question. So let's proceed to giving them their meal. I've got these soiled paper towels that we'll begin with, sort of a little foundation onto which the feeding can come. I've got my prepared bedding, which is a combo of different materials, mainly shredded paper and cardboard with leaves mixed in, and then a little bit of moisture to dampen things and help soften some of the materials up, so that by the time it gets to the worms, it's something that they can maybe already start nibbling on, but at very least use as a comfortable bedding to live in. So back in with the corn cob and half of a mango seed husk. And I would not be surprised if, as we go rummaging through this material momentarily to see how things are on the outskirts, we probably end up bumping into it, and then we can centralize it with the rest of the foods somehow. These potatoes have been in the freezer for so long, and I finally brought them to the front because they had sort of slid in the back and went out of view. That's the reason they've been unused as worm food for so long, but their day has come, so they're finally getting fed to the worms. So it seems to me like there was only one banana peel, so I feel like I've split that up 2 ways pretty nicely. And orange peel also seemed to be only one, so I figured I would take a couple fragments of that and make sure each system gets a little sample of the orange peel citrus treat, and everything else, little bits of green and stems and who knows what. An assortment of different stuff, and somehow I had this feeling like this feeding was going to be somewhat larger. I don't know why. I guess because of its weight, but perhaps it was just those potatoes, you know. A single potato like this has got some good weight to it. Good bit of moisture inside that food as well, I would assume, so I'm thinking the worms are going to enjoy ripping into that. Presumably it's been in the freezer long enough so that it's not going to attempt to grow. That's a lesson I've learned, which is to freeze the potato before you give it to the worm bins, because the potato will just sense that as a really awesome place to grow or continue growing, and it'll do just that rather than enter the breakdown process. So I'm just wondering if we should add a little bit more bedding in here. It is their 200th day in service, is it not? Let's just be a little bit more generous. I'm trying to overcome this hoarding tendency that I have as I run lower and lower on something, specifically the prepared bedding at this point. I have to make more, but usually that depends on a standby supply of shredded paper and cardboard, of which I presently don't have any. So I'm sort of forcing the hand on a few tasks that need doing around here, such as shredding and then bedding prep. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that later today, now that we've had our fun with the worms. All right. Still no signs of half of a mango seed husk. But who knows? Just because it's in one bin doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in both. Sometimes things do slip in and aren't distributed to both bins evenly. But I do make, you know, a good effort, I would say, to try to maintain consistency between my systems. Who knows, maybe we'll find the other half, the mango seed, over here, meaning that only one system ever received a mango seed, and after it's split in half, it simply remained in that system. It's so nice when you could blend in these leaves that have been sitting out here on the surface over the past couple weeks. My assumption is that it's stuff that the worms are not only going to enjoy as supplemental bedding to their environment, but also possibly something that they can feast on too. Take a little nibble on it as they pass on by. All right, now we get to see how our feeding zone indicators look. Well, at least the one that was really shredded. Let's just see about draping it out here a little bit, just as a little bit of a visual aid to say, hey, in case you don't remember where you fed, right here. That's kind of when you start really getting into the nitty-gritty of, why do you need a feeding zone indicator? Help me understand. You would have trouble finding it again? Oh boy, that was generous, but you know what? Day 200, no harm in being generous. Oh boy, it's always funny when that little surge starts to pour out and then you start questioning whether you really wanted that much or not, but you know, I bet you the worms are down there saying, yeah, bring it on. That's not much. We could take more. Give us more. All right, so let's get this stuff spread out here across the surface. Plastic's doing a nice job helping the system hang on to its moisture. As it tries to escape, the plastic catches it, and as it starts to accumulate and condense, I think is the past tense of what it's doing there. The moisture is condensing on the plastic, dropping back down and creating a nice damp surface out here for the worms to explore, although it is all kind of fresh and sort of, you know, quote-unquote sterile material that the worms might not like as much as something that might be a little bit more broken in, but at least by getting it into the game, we start priming it for some really nice use. So that's it for our check-in with the now 200-day-old European nightcrawler worm bins, getting feeding number 18 here after a 2-week pause, and pretty generous feeding, I think. So hopefully they enjoy it, and that's the end of the video. I got a couple things to take care of getting cleaned up, put away here, but I'm not going to waste time with that. Before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.